All right, we're looking at right now where someone came down the hill with the ATV. Now, I've got an ATV, and so you have to say, well, is this your ATV doing this or someone else's ATV doing it? Now, as we go through the program, we're going to talk about how to navigate your land so that you don't have the problems that you were expecting to have with other people on your land. And so the ATVs are coming through here, and they're blazing down this way. I've only had this ATV on this property. Maybe this is my third time out on the trail. Others have been out here 10, 20, 30 times. Now, if you're going 5 or 10 miles an hour, nobody's even going to notice, but you'll still have these kind of problems. So you can see where someone's come around the corner here. So, and actually, I haven't come through. Oh, I just dragged a tree here. I'll talk about that here in a second. So one of the things that I do when I drive the trail is I drive the majority of the trail. And so we're going slow, and we're not going over the same spot over and over again to avoid treading. Now, I don't come up with this stuff. This is what the National Park Service recommends. So we're not running the ATVs out there in the woods. We're not running the ATVs out here and parking where we shouldn't be parking, because you can see there is kind of a track here. You know, there's a level line that you can get into there. Okay, but right here, there's a trail that goes all the way down into the woods. Now, it still stays on my property, but it goes down into the woods where it shouldn't be going. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put up something to know whether or not somebody's down there. You need to have a positive barrier or positive identification that access is not permitted. So I put a tree up here. It's just a little branch that was on the ground. There's some turkey tail mushrooms on it. Look at that, beautiful. And so I try to keep those upright. But basically I put something across because somebody was coming down here in the trail. Now, when you take an ATV down a hill or a horse down the hill, ATVs and horses make about the same damage. You're gonna have this kind of cutting. And so I don't want this to happen anymore because I don't want water from up there coming down here. Now, this is or could be a walking trail to get to the bottom of the property because there is a spring down that way. But again, there's a conservation area there that is under the EPA and the Virginia Forestry Conservation plan. So I have a forest management plan here, and down there is an area that is off limits to humans except for observation and inventories. So nothing goes in or nothing comes out from that area because it is a conservation area. So obviously we do not want an ATV running around in there. And you can see how there's treading and tracking even from the last time I was in here. And then again, you can see the matting of the grass. There's like a pretty clear line right here. And then it goes down into a trail a couple different ways. Now, most people on ATVs are not that careful. I've observed that this track is going into the woods, and I'll talk about that in another video. But folks are not that careful, so what we do is we want positive evidence. And of course, I'm videotaping all this. All you really got to do is simply just take a picture or do a little video. But I want positive evidence. So I put a little something across the trail. They're going to drive over it, bust it all up, and then I'll know somebody's been back here. And I probably want to put it up on this side so that it's dragged into this brush, and then I want to get rid of this stuff. So essentially, what I'm doing is setting up a minor brush dam, okay? So I'm setting up a minor brush fence. A brush fence is a normal thing that somebody might not even notice in the woods. And so by setting up this brush fence, if someone comes through here, I'll see all these sticks all moved out of the way. They'll all get crushed up and they'll get pushed out of the way. Now, it's not unusual for me to do brush fences. You can see the brush everywhere. It's not unusual for me to do brush fences for wildlife management or erosion control. But this particular brush fence, which I'm going to knock down some of this so they don't see it. It has an obstacle. But this just looks like something fell down in the woods. Not a big deal. They just drive over it with the ATV. Now, driving over the ATV breaks it all up. And if they go around the tree, I'll see that track as well. This is kind of a stealth way to identify whether somebody's been coming and going on your trails. And it gives you positive evidence because you deliberately set this particular thing. Now, I come back in 3 weeks, 3 months, and this has never been touched and it's covered in leaves. I'll be the happiest guy in the world because I don't want people out here running about in the woods. I'm looking along the edges to see if there's some animal trails over there. But again, I don't want all this mess. So you put a couple obstacles that look kind of natural across the trail. They will drive over them, because most people who are going where they're not supposed to are lazy bastards. And I'll say that right now. So again, if you're coming down the hill and you're blazing through here, you're not going to notice that there's a little brush dam right about there in the picture. All right, next thing we want to talk about is where do we place cameras? Now, I'm not going to tell you specifically where I'm placing cameras, but I do know I need to place cameras where I can see up and down the trail and they can't see the camera, because I already have one camera out here that miraculously didn't pick up anything. So the camera I've showed you in past pictures, videos right there, it miraculously didn't pick up anything. So either the chip's been pulled out. I did notice it had pictures from another camera. I usually erase it, so maybe somebody pulled a chip from one camera and then swapped them, because I'm missing one chip. Long story short, I put the camera up there. I've been walking around here to see what I get, but we could probably hide another camera on my property and where I'm gonna see somebody entering or exiting this. So that's the key. You want your cameras on the entrance and exit of your property. So in this particular case, I'll find a place to put the camera. We're not going to talk about it right now. Lastly, when we're doing trail maintenance, how do we recover and fix many of these areas that are now slotted or have this little, basically the water when it rains is running down here. So how do we fix this? Well, we're going to have to get out here and do brush dams. We're going to have to get out here and get vegetation on the ground. And one of the problems with the ATVs is it kills most of that if you're going fast. Same thing with horses, by the way. I'm not anti-ATV. I actually didn't want an ATV, but now I got one temporarily, and I like it because I can get in and out of places. I could bring gear and equipment back here. I don't know if you see my little setup there, but I got my tools and my bag and everything going on and my cameras. But my point is, it is a valuable tool on your property. And whether you're riding bicycles on it, doing mountain biking, or you're four-wheeling, you're going to have wear and tear on your trails. So you want to design the trails so that anything going up or down a slope is on a ridge. So this particular inn is not on the ridge, because the ridge, which is over there, kind of goes off my property. So I don't want to do that. So what we're going to need to do is use brush dams, or we can drag logs and brush from the woods and put them on the trail. Now, if you're going really slow on the ATV over brush, it's not going to be a big deal. The problem is somebody's blazing down the road. So I tend to set everything across the road like this. And if you drive over it nice and slow, no notice. But if somebody comes blazing down the trails, they're going to throw one of these sticks up and hurt themselves. So, and I'll tell you and show you an example. You can see here how we're starting to go down the trail. I'm going to lay a bunch of brush like this. Now, I could dig a trench and divert the water off to the side here somewhere so that the water doesn't run down the hill. But seriously, you can literally mound brush in the trails because you're driving over them so slowly that you're not kicking up the sticks. And this works whether you have trucks or you have ATVs or you have horses. The horses, you want to make sure you're riding upslope a little bit and go slow, because they may not want to walk over a bunch of brush. It really does have to be sticks laid down. But you can bundle these sticks. You can cut down a tree and leave the logs in place. Whatever is going to help you get grass. But the biggest thing you can do, the most valuable thing you can do, is to stay off the trails within 72 hours of a rain event. Now, my goal is to have these trails wide enough that I can drive a dump truck through here and dump mulch on the trails. Or I can, be out here shredding brush and throwing it on the trails. Or the trails are wide enough that grass grows on the trails. But if you're riding on the trails, anything other than humans walking on the trail within 72 hours of a rain event, you will have erosion, you will have damage. And so what I just recommend is you use as much of the trail as possible, as lightly as possible. So you can see the trail has starting to get these little tracks in the middle, because an ATV will tend to just drive down the center. I'm driving slower. I could straddle either side of these tracks and just kind of widen out the compaction. Once it should reduce the amount of compaction, but once this trail is compacted, I'll have to aerate it, I'll have to seed it, and I'll have to stay off it for a while in order to get some grass growing, because if you don't have grass roots in there, then you're going to lose this whole thing. Now, this trail that we're looking at right now is on contour, but when it gets to the end there, it goes up the hill because there's a big ditch over there, so it's off contour. So we want to focus our time and effort on mulching and brush damming our slopes. And then on our contour areas, we want to get those as wide as possible to get grass growing. And we should be pretty good. But again, you see what we're talking about here. I want to know if somebody's going off the trails. I want to know our trails are clean and everybody's going slow on the trails. And I want to have positive evidence if somebody's been out here, so that I can associate that individual's trespassing with the damage and therefore stop it from ever happening again. So that's key I want to leave you with. If you're enjoying this tutorial, that's great. I want you to implement this stuff. If you have specific questions, I can help you with the GIS, and I can help you with satellite imagery about where you might want to put cameras in relationship to your trails. And then we're using onX Hunt right now to track our movement through the property, so we know positively where the trails are. You can use a GPS to do that. That information together, I can show you how to load it onto Google Earth or to another platform like onX Hunt, and I can sit down and help you manage your trails, map out your trails, help you collect evidence if necessary, help you see changes over time, and then ultimately keep people off your property, because there's some bucks out here, and I don't want poachers, and there'll be some goats and some pigs, and I don't want poachers. And long story short, if you ain't been invited, you aren't supposed to be out here. Again, I'm Justin Hitt, Prosperity Homestead. Ask your questions in the course. We'll answer them in supplements. Visit www.prosperityhomestead.org, and I'll see you in the next video.